In ETS2, the most important things are actually quite simple. What you drive, whether that's a truck, a car, and soon enough maybe even a coach. And perhaps even more importantly is where you drive. You get where I'm going with this, right? Map mods have always been one of the greatest things to happen to this community. So today, we're taking a look at what might just be the most detailed ETS2 map ever created. A small region in southwest Germany packed with beautiful villages, dense cities, and some very unique encounters. Reviewing map mods has become one of my favorite things to do as a creator, and it's often a very humbling experience, getting to drive through places built by members of this community. In many ways, I see these projects as a form of art. Every road, town and small detail that reflects maybe thousands of decisions made by people trying to recreate a place visually and emotionally as well. For me, that's where the atmosphere comes from, representing the story every map mod tells, giving us a nice view into their minds and souls of its creators. Now, I'm no stranger to RPM, I've driven these roads before. I even used this map as a setting for one of my short films back when I was starting this YouTube journey. But between the game updates, new projects and everything else happening in the trucking scene, I never really had a chance to sit down and properly review it. So when I got early access to this newer build, I knew it was finally time. For those unfamiliar with the project, RPM is a standalone map mod that recreates Germany's Rhineland-Palatinate region on a true one-on-one scale. It's a project developed by passionate people that has spent years building and pursuing a specific goal: maximum realism, immersion, and atmosphere. And after spending some time back on these roads, I think it's finally time we see just how close they've come. As soon as you load into RPM, it's gonna be obvious that this lays in a different league. As you might know, many maps, mods, or official like to take their time to reveal themselves. You'll drive a few kilometers, pass through a town or two, and slowly begin to understand what the creators were aiming for. RPM takes a different approach. From the moment you're dropped into the starting depot, you're gonna be surrounded by so many details. Road branches in every direction, buildings filling the horizon, and industrial areas will blend into residential streets right away, and there's always something happening whenever you are. The best way I could describe this is as a beautiful kind of chaos. Not necessarily overwhelming, but enough that it makes the place feel very busy and alive. As life was already happening here before you arrived, if that makes sense. Part of that comes from where the map chooses to introduce you. You're starting in its maybe largest and densest urban area, so naturally you're being shown some of its strongest cards early on. But rest assured, this feeling doesn't disappear once you leave that city behind. No matter which direction I drove, that same attention to detail followed. One of the things RPM does particularly well is constantly playing with your expectations. You'll pass what looks like a decorative industrial complex only to discover it's an actual company where you can pick a job, or you'll notice a tight side road parking spot that you think exists just for visual purposes, only to find yourself reversing a trailer into it 20 minutes later. The map has a nice habit of turning background scenery into gameplay, and all this activity packed into relatively small places, they're working towards the same goal, creating a world on its own, tucked away in one of the most beautiful places in Germany. But as impressive as that first drive is, it only scratches the surface of what this map has to offer. So if the first few minutes would introduce you to RPM's attention to detail, the roads taking you further inland will reinforce that feeling. Quite simply, this is one of the best driving experiences I had in ETS2. Part of that comes from the roads themselves. They're generally narrower than what most players are used to, and because of that, driving requires your attention, and despite being a bit more challenging, it often feels more natural than many official areas of the game. The one-on-one scale plays a huge role in this. The cities feel well connected, the deliveries make sense geographically, and it's nice to see that jobs aren't randomly scattered across the map purely for gameplay convenience. Instead, there's a nice logic behind where things are placed and how the road network connects them together. The result is a map that feels a lot less like a collection of destinations and more like an actual region. Then there are the countless situations that would emerge when you're driving. Traffic is nicely varied, and it feels like an active part of the world, and the road events regularly influence the flow of traffic ahead of you, forcing you to react and adapt to what's happening around you. At one point, I've encountered one of RPM's unique police events, which in all honesty is the kind of feature many ETS2 players have wished existed in the base game for many years. The further you explore, the more surprises you find, rustic roads that branch away from the main routes and would reward your curiosity. Traffic behaves in ways that occasionally make you laugh, occasionally make you nervous, and sometimes both at the same time. And more than once, I watched bikers overtake the traffic in places they probably shouldn't have, creating those small, unpredictable moments that makes driving feel less scripted. It's quite difficult to fully communicate everything you notice while driving through this map. There's a number of elements that creates this unique region-accurate atmosphere. Some of it comes from the roads, some of it comes from the traffic, and some of it comes from the scale. But a lot of it comes from the dozens of tiny details that your brain registers without you realizing it, not until you sit back and think about it for a bit. One example that perfectly captures the mentality behind this project are the parking areas scattered through the map. The NPC vehicles actually uses these parking spots. The cars enter, the cars leave, so much so that the places serve a purpose. And moments like that are everywhere in the map. The deeper you look, the more it shows that RPM isn't detailed for the sake of being detailed. Nearly everything feels designed to contribute to the illusion that this place exists independently for the player. That's remarkably difficult to achieve in a game like ETS2. There are a lot of things in RPM that will make you stop and take a second look, and while many other maps have a handful of standout location or landmarks, places you look forward to reaching because that's where the developers concentrated their work, RPM feels a bit different. After a few hours on the map, you realize there isn't really a main attraction. The small villages receive the same attention like the larger towns, and the side roads are treated with the same care as the major routes, so then the entire map is the landmark here. And that's probably the closest I've come in ETS2 to feeling like I'm driving through a real region rather than a game map. Now, if you've watched my content for a while, you know I tend to be more positive than negative when reviewing map mods, and that's true. Part of that comes from the fact that there's a difference between evaluating content produced by a large studio and evaluating a passion project built by people in their free time. But regardless of who's behind it, fair criticism is important, and RPM does have a few weaknesses. The biggest one is performance. The sheer amount of detail packed into this map comes at a cost, and even powerful PCs will notice it in some denser areas. The other challenge is the update compatibility. Compared to projects like ProMods or Grand Utopia, RPM receives updates less frequently. With SCS releasing new game versions at a steady pace, and the RPM team being much smaller, there are periods where the map falls behind the latest version. That's completely understandable for me, given the scope of this project and the fact that it's developed as a hobby, but it does mean RPM is often a map you'll enjoy between ETS2 updates rather than on every new release day. If you want to be like me and be positive about things, you could also look at the fact that every now and then RPM manages to bring us a beautiful map compatible to the current version, and it's like a real treat in between the game updates. Now, all in all, at the end of the day, RPM is simply a map that I enjoyed spending time in, and I don't think I can do it justice with the review. I tried to find my words and I tried to express what I felt, but it's quite difficult, which is something I never, had a problem with before. I kept reviewing map mods and I was able to basically say what I saw, but RPM is so unique that I just can't find my words for it. I can say it's a project built by people who clearly care. With the latest update bringing compatibility to the ETS2 1.59, RPM remains a map mod that I have no problem recommending to anyone looking for something different. It's immersive, memorable, and absolutely worthy of its place among the very best map mods ETS2 has to offer. Thank you all for watching, and as always, until the next time, stay safe on the road and keep on trucking. Cheers.